Hi, good evening and welcome to a very special edition of the Hot Tag. This is the Friday night edition and I'm joined by...
Adam Stephen Kelly.
And I'm Ed Kelly, and apologies for not being with you in the last show, but Adam had to go alone as I was ill, but thank you Adam for filling in for both of us, and you did a very good job.
Thanks a lot.
No problem. Okay, on tonight's show, as it's a special, we're going to be sort of highlighting a couple of different things. The first thing will be we're having a full review of the WWE Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. And also, as today is the release of WWE 13 from THQ, we'll be doing a full played review of that. And also, we'll be taking a look down memory lane at past wrestling video games and arcade games. And also, of course, we'll be having your questions again. 3 questions from the Hot Tag Mailbag.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said in the last episode, we held off on doing the mailbag because it was just me on the last episode. But today we're going to be delving in and we're going to be picking... We've got 3 questions lined up that we've selected and drawn from the Hot Tag Mailbag, and we'll be answering those on this special.
Wonderful. Right, as we said, we're going to be reviewing Hell in the Cell. We'd love to know what you people thought of it and your reviews. As always, the email address is...
hottagmailbag@yahoo.com.
And you can also find us on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and type in the Hot Tag Podcast and you'll find us. Okay, right, Hell in a Cell. Let's kick off first of all the main event, which was hugely anticipated, this one. And this was the WWE Championship match. CM Punk defeated Ryback. And this, of course, was an actual Hell in a Cell match. Obviously, CM Punk got the win in this one. I was very surprised. This was not quite what I was expecting, because after Ryback having such a build to this, I actually expected him to walk away with the belt.
Yeah, I did too. As I said on the last episode, I fully expected Ryback to walk away with the championship because, like I said, CM Punk had nothing to lose by losing the title. You know, he's been a strong champion. He's held it for nearly a year now. He could have lost it. He could have regained it in a month. And by losing it to Ryback, could have made, you know, a star in Ryback, and you know, given him that extra bit of momentum for the next month or so, and also a spike in the ratings. And actually, on Raw, the ratings only rose a little bit coming off of the back of Hell in a Cell. So, you know, you have to wonder what would happen if Ryback did actually win the WWE Championship.
That's right. I mean, we actually have a question on Ryback about what will happen to him now after the Hell in a Cell, but we won't go into that now because that's in the mailbag later. But it certainly, the finish they used certainly didn't hurt him. And, you know, I mean, I thought that he was built so much up for the show with the Goldberg-esque. It was Atlanta as well, so it was all built for him. But the way it ended with the referee interfering, Brad Maddox, and the low blow, certainly didn't affect his stature and his credibility. However, I was a bit surprised that he still allowed himself to be pinned.
Yeah, well, I mean, being a Hell in a Cell match, you could only sort of either pin or tap out, and I think, you know, submitting would definitely wouldn't have happened. That was the only problem, is when you have an event like Hell in a Cell, you know, there has to be at least one Hell in a Cell match. So when you build that CM Punk is going to step inside Hell in a Cell, originally, of course, the plan was going to be Cena versus Punk, but then you have to have a Hell in a Cell match. There's no going back. And then once you have someone with Ryback who has this undefeated streak, then obviously came the conundrum of, well, how, you know, A, who's going to win, and B, if it's Punk, how's Punk going to win while protecting Ryback? And thankfully, they did actually manage to come up with a finish, as kind of semi-horrendous as it was, the whole referee business with Brad Maddox, but they still managed to protect Ryback at the same time as protecting the Punk and the WWE Championship. And of course, Ryback was very strong at the end of the show, hitting the shell-shocked, his finish on the top of the cell. So the show ended with Ryback on top. So Ryback protected. They did a good job of you know, keeping his status as this kind of monster, even though of course his undefeated streak is no longer intact.
That's right. I mean, even with Ryback being so over at the moment, even before and after the event, one thing, if you saw this event live like we did, you will notice that the crowd was absolutely dead all the way through the show. I don't think I've ever seen such a flat crowd at a WWE pay-per-view. I mean, we've said this over the last few weeks. People have said about the WWE, how can they start making a bit, get the fans more involved, get the fans off their seats. But I mean, this was probably the flattest crowd I've seen for such a long time.
Yeah, the crowd were pretty down on everything, and it wasn't that the event was a bad event, because I don't think it was. I mean, there were some good matches. The Punk Ryback match, wasn't a very good match. The finish was always going to be, if Punk won, the finish was always going to be questionable.
It was a very short match as well, wasn't it? It was probably not, people were probably expecting it to go longer, but about 13 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just shy of 14 minutes. So one of the shorter Hell in a Cell matches, and there wasn't. It really was just a kind of the match you expected from Ryback and Punk. Even if it wasn't Hell in a Cell, with a couple of sort of hardcore spots thrown in with the ring steps and I think that was it, just sort of using the cage walls and the ring steps. But it wasn't, top to bottom, it wasn't really a bad show. The World Heavyweight Championship match between Sheamus and the Big Show, where the Big Show actually got the surprise win, that was a good match. That went 20 minutes, and I think that was a show stealer. Really, it was the last quarter of the match really did actually get the crowd going, and that was the hottest they were all night. But I think it's just a case of, crowds do vary location to location, which is always interesting. I mean, you have an event in like Chicago or New York, and the fans are completely, they can be completely different. And Canada as well, actually, the fans are very different. Over in those three places, they seem to cheer on the heel wrestlers, and they seem to be kind of smarter fans, a bit more in tune to what actually happens, behind the scenes and in the history of wrestling and whatnot. So I guess it depends where you go, really, but definitely the crowd at Hell in a Cell were far from active.
Definitely. I mean, going on to the where the actual event is taking place, obviously the Americans are spoilt, because obviously you have wrestling there every twice a week, mainly based in America. Obviously you could go across the world, but over Britain, say, the crowd for a SmackDown live or a Raw live would be absolutely phenomenal, because we only get to see that Raw twice a year over here live, SmackDown over here live, and we do not have any live events over here. The last one, I believe, actual live main event was SummerSlam '92 at Wembley Stadium. Sorry,
the main sort of big proper pay per view. I mean, they've
Exactly.
held the Rebellion and Insurrection, but those were literally just pay-per-view events that were aired in the UK. They had no bearing on storylines, and they weren't broadcast outside of the UK.
That's right. I mean, I sort of mean the big four back then was the Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and WrestleMania. I mean, I'd love obviously to see a WrestleMania. I don't think it would matter where you had WrestleMania in such of a selling point of view, because wherever you have WrestleMania, it will be a sellout and people will watch it worldwide, wherever it is from. But I think for audience-wise, something like a Royal Rumble or a SummerSlam maybe, why not have it somewhere else? Why not have it abroad for a change? I mean, it could be somewhere in Europe, it could be somewhere in South America or Asia, just for a change. Anyway, you touched there on Sheamus and Big Show. That was also a hell of a match, and Sheamus' nearly 7 month end title reign has come to an end. He was probably the first superstar ever to kick out the devastating knockout punch, though. But Big Show is now the heavyweight champion.
Yeah, Sheamus did indeed kick out the WMD, Big Show's knockout punch. Hit it out of pretty much out of nowhere. Sheamus ended up kicking out after countering the bro kick. Sheamus eventually did hit the bro kick, and they've been building for the last few weeks whether Sheamus would actually be able to hit the kick. Actually get his foot up to the Big Show's face, 7 foot up. But he did manage to do that. He did manage to hit the bro kick, and Big Show kicked out, and the crowd went absolutely crazy for this moment. And as crazy as they did when Sheamus kicked out the WMD. But then, as Sheamus was going for the second bro kick, Big Show hit the second WMD, again out of absolutely nowhere. Crowd went crazy again, and Big Show is the new World Heavyweight Champion. But this was probably the best Big Show match in the last decade, really. The last one-on-one match the Big Show had in the last decade. It was a really strong, enjoyable match, and like I said, the last quarter was electrifying.
Definitely, and we've actually got a question here later for the mailbag on Big Show as a champion, our opinions. Okay, next on the Hell in a Cell was the triple threat match between Eve, Layla and Caitlin, and Eve walked out victorious, and she now has the WWE Divas Championship.
Yeah, well, she successfully defended. Easy to get confused by the Divas because they'll kind of look the same. But yeah, this went nearly 7 minutes, and it wasn't the best Divas match. Really, it was kind of Eve and Layla trying to carry Caitlin in this triple threat scenario. It was a very forgettable Divas match, as many of them are, and it went on way too long.
Yeah, I know. To be honest, with the Divas, I'm not being sexist here. I've said it before. I'm not really a great fan of women's wrestling. I just don't think it has the same. There's something about it. It just doesn't have the same bite to it. That's all I can explain. I'm not being sexist or rude to women here by any means. But with a show that was so dead on its flat crowd wise, I really think they could have used the opportunity to go out there and use those 7 minutes to maybe get the crowd going a bit and try and put some impetus into the show. But again, it was just really another nondescript Divas match, really. Yeah,
and I've never had a problem with women's wrestling. It's just the fact the problem lies in the talent, especially on the WWE roster. There is such a lack of depth now, especially now. There's barely any divas in the company, especially ones who are actually good in the ring. You've got Natalya, and who else is there now? Because Beth Phoenix she's now gone as of Raw as her final night. We were talking about this a few weeks ago.
That's
Beth
right.
Phoenix has come to the end of her contract as of Halloween, 31st of October. Raw was her final night. Bizarrely, she won her final match, which was quite strange. But she's now out of a contract, and Beth Phoenix has always been good in the ring. But now there's only kind of really Natalya that comes to mind as a diva who's actually good in the ring. But then who else has gone this year? Karma's gone, although she never really did anything because of obviously her pregnancy. The Bella twins have also gone. There really such a lack of divas, and you think a couple of years ago, and there were so many divas that half the time they were throwing them all on TV in like these huge tag team matches and battle royals just to get them all on TV. Now you couldn't even really do that because there's barely any on the roster.
Yeah, definitely few and far between. Okay, the next match, of course, was Team Road Scholars, and they defeated Team Hell No, which is of course the big 7-foot monster Kane and Daniel Bryan, and Team Scholars are Cody Rhodes and Damien Sandow. I'm a big fan of those two, to be honest. I love the genius angle that Damien Sandow comes across, and the way he does the cartwheels in the ring. Of course, they won, but due to a disqualification, the titles didn't change hands, and there's still more bickering among the ranks between Team Hell No.
Yeah, there are indeed. Kane was disqualified because he wouldn't adhere to the referee's 5 count because he was not the legal man, and he was putting a beat down on both Cody Rhodes and Damien Sandow. But of course, they do retain the Tag Team Championship, and like you said, they're still bickering over who is the WWE Tag Team Champions. But they're still providing quite a bit of comedy gold, and I am a big fan of this angle. But I would expect possibly a rematch at. Actually, no, there's not going to be a rematch at Survivor Series because both teams are in the Survivor Series elimination match, which has just been confirmed. They're on Team Foley and Team Punk, respectively. But I would expect to see a rematch between the two in the near future, and then I would also expect Sin Cara and Rey Mysterio to get a shot and at the tag team titles, and they were also in action against the Primetime Players in an unannounced tag team match, which was a pretty good match actually, and.
Sorry, just to interrupt you there. The thing with they won, Rhodes and Sandow won by disqualification, but you've got to remember they outlasted 7 other teams, didn't they, in the tournament to earn the privilege of challenging at Hell in a Cell. So for them to win by disqualification but not win the belts, to me, is a bit I'd like to have seen them actually. I think they're a good team, but I would like to see them actually get a chance to win the belts because they're a good heel tag team. And it could have given a chance to some of the other tag teams like your Sin Cara and Rey Mysterio to eventually have a further run with them.
Yeah, well, I disagree in the sense that I'm glad that Team Hell No have continued their reign as the tag team champions. I don't think it was their time to lose. Of course, I'm well up for Team Road Scholars getting the titles, in a month or two, because I think they're a good team, and it's good. I'm glad to see that the WWE Tag Team division is actually alive again. because it's been dead for the best part of 10 years now.
Yeah.
I do disagree with the way the match finished because, like you said, there was this tournament, and then you end up with a DQ finish, and it kind of waters down the whole tournament. It's like when we were talking about the Bound for Glory series and last year's Bound for Glory series when that match ended without the winner of the Bound for Glory series winning the championship. Obviously, in a much smaller scale, a disqualification finish for a match, a match that they earned by going through many, many teams in a tag team tournament, kind of just decreases the worth of that whole tournament, and you just think, well, what was the point? That's right.
Again, you touched on the next match, which was Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara, and they defeated the Primetime Players. And I must say, since they've paired Sin Cara up with Rey Mysterio, he's been making a lot less mistakes, perhaps than Rey Mysterio's taking him under his ring. When he first came into Sin Cara, he came under a lot of scrutiny for the mistakes he was making, and also maybe breaches of the wellness policy. But now he seems to be, putting on a performance every time he gets in the ring, and they won the match.
Yeah, well, the pairing of Mysterio and Sin Cara seems like, an absolutely logical pairing. I guess it's kind of a dream pairing as well. I mean, you've got the kind of effectively a kind of legendary high flyer really in Mysterio, and Sin Cara is kind of like the new school high flyer, like a modern day incarnation of Mysterio. Sin Cara, of course, like you said, for the past year he's been a dud really. I mean, he's been so ineffective in the WWE. Of course, he's been out with an injury. He's also been out with a wellness policy suspension. But since he's been, taken under the wing of Rey Mysterio in the last month or two, his work in the ring has improved, a hell of a lot. And maybe there's a kind of language barrier that's been an issue. But Mysterio and Cara are a good team, and Sin Cara has I think finally adapted to the WWE style, which of course is very different from the style they use in Mexico.
Okay, then we had the rematch between the Intercontinental Champion Kofi Kingston against The Miz. Miz was obviously trying to reclaim the belt he lost a couple of weeks ago against Kofi, but came unstuck.
Yep, and unfortunately they've had two good matches. They had a first match on Raw, which Kofi Kingston defeated The Miz, and that enabled him to get his Intercontinental Championship match on Main Event, which was an amazing match. They went about 20 minutes on WWE Main Event. Kofi eventually won the title. Great match. Comes to their rematch on pay-per-view, and then they're given half the time, despite the matches of the whole night being given a lot more time, obviously to make up for the fact that the main event was only going to run for 14 minutes. But Kingston and The Miz, their match was fine, but it really wasn't a patch on their first championship encounter a couple of weeks ago on Main Event. And actually the same happened with the Antonio Cesaro and Justin Gabriel match, but I don't know if you want to chip in on Miz and Kingston first.
The Miz and Kofi. I mean, you're going to see those at house shows all the time, wrestling each other, and they probably have, wrestled each other, 200 times a year. They probably every house show they have a match, twice on Sundays. So really, I don't suppose they probably thought the time they had that they really needed to maybe put out all the stops. But you do get that a lot with wrestlers when they wrestle each other. A lot of times they have maybe an A match, a B match, and a C match. Look at maybe back in the old days when Bret Hart used to wrestle Mr. Perfect, and they used to say that some days at SummerSlam '91 we'd have an A-star match, we'd call it, and then the next day we'd be wrestling, but we'd both be hungover, and they couldn't be bothered to do maybe some of the spots, and they'd give them we'd give them a C match that day. So I think maybe they just maybe left out a few spots and pieces, maybe because they probably didn't think, especially the crowd. I mean, this is the crowd. I mean, the crowd pay their money for the tickets and they expect a show. But I suppose when the crowd's maybe, as flat as it was, maybe it has an effect on the wrestlers. Maybe they don't think they need to give maybe 100%.
Yeah, it can't be too inspiring when you're giving it your all or whatever, and the crowd aren't too responsive. And again, going back to the Cesaro and Gabriel match that we just touched upon, the crowd were completely, I think they were the deadest of the night, apart from the Divas match, in this United States Championship match. Cesaro defeating Gabriel and retaining his title. Gabriel, of course, earned this match by defeating Cesaro in an upset victory. Seems the WWE are kind of maybe getting behind Justin Gabriel now at last. And but it wasn't his night. He didn't win the US title. And again, they didn't have a good as match as they did when Gabriel defeated Cesaro. But still a fine match. And the penultimate move before Cesaro hit the neutralizer on Gabriel to win the match, he hit his signature European elbow when Gabriel did a springboard to the outside, which was a pretty sickening spot. And certainly I'm surprised it didn't actually knock out Justin Gabriel out cold, because the impact of it was pretty horrendous. But that set up the neutralizer, and Cesaro retained the championship.
Okay, so that really, so all in all, really, a mixed bag for Hell in a Cell. There were some, good points. I suppose of any event you're going to watch on telly, good points, bad points. Shame about the crowd, because sometimes that can make things seem more lively. But all in all, not the greatest pay-per-view in the world, but we've got Survivor Series, just around the corner to look forward to. I've always been a huge fan of Survivor Series, especially in the old format with the the 5 against 5 teams, or how many they decide to put. But I do enjoy that format. Let's go to the mailbag next. And some of these have a bearing on the Hell in a Cell match. The first one is from Giles Mallard, and he says, what do you think will happen to Ryback now that his undefeated streak has gone? We touched on this slightly. I don't think it's going to be... I think the way they did it with the low blow and CM Punk obviously getting the pin after the low blow, I don't think that's done any damage to him, providing they carry on and try and build him up again. Because if they just drop him now, the whole thing was a waste of time. He'll end up doing jobs for other people. But if we keep him as his monster and build the wins up again, then I think he's still destined for good things.
Yeah, I think the WWE are still behind him. I mean, obviously, I think the intention was always to get him in the WWE Championship picture eventually. Clearly, because of the Cena injury, they had to bring him up, to main event level very, very, very quickly. So kind of like pulling a fish out of water in a sense. They had him on the road with Punk, and they still do at the moment. So, the fact that they've still got Ryback and Punk on the road post Hell in a Cell, at house shows, live events, is pretty indicative of, the future plans. And of course, it's Team Punk versus Team Foley at Survivor Series, but the team leader, in a sense, seems to be Ryback, because Foley's not participating in that match. He's only going to be managing it. So, I think the feud between Ryback and Punk is going to continue, and we'll have to see what happens after Survivor Series at the next pay-per-view, which I believe is TLC, if they're going to go with Ryback and Punk again, or maybe they're going to go with Punk versus Foley, because this is something that's been simmering for the last few months. Is Punk going to face Foley in his return to the ring? Only time will tell. But
yeah, I mean, I think with obviously huge comparisons between Ryback and Goldberg, we all know they're getting boring now. But one thing that the WWE does have is the hindsight that they can look at what happened with Goldberg, because the very same thing with the streak. But once WCW ended Goldberg's streak, that effectively killed off Bill Goldberg. They did stupid things in him after that. They did silly angles, being arrested every week, and that killed his WCW career, and he was never the same after that. Even when he came to WWE, once he'd done that, he was never going to have a long, successful career with them. So I think they can look at that now, and they can look at Ryback and think, well, we've got several ideas for him. Let's do this. Let's keep building him up, because he's only had one loss, and it was not a clean defeat. So there's plenty more from him, and I don't think it'll be too long before he has the belt. I think it'll be too long before he gets a chance. I'm very interested to see if he does get the belt, how long they will keep it on him. Because I can't really see many sort of superstars at the moment that are going to come through and be able to run with the belt. Another Hell in a Cell related question is from Luke Varney, and he says, what do you think of the Big Show winning the belt and who, in your opinion, are the best wrestling big men? Well, first of all, with the Big Show, I'm glad to see he has got the belt again. This isn't the first time he's been the World Heavyweight Champion, is he? He has.
No, he last held the World Heavyweight Championship at TLC last year for 45 seconds.
Oh, that's
because
right.
Daniel Bryan cashed in Money in the Bank.
That's right. I think Big Show is quite a hard worker now. He's done a lot more recently. If you've seen the DVD documentary they WWE showed on him, he'd be first to say that when he was the champion years ago, he wasn't perhaps maybe the best frame of mind, and he was a bit lazy, and they sent him to OVW basically as a lesson to him. And I think now that the experience and everything has made him learn. And I think that he is he's limited to what he can do because of his size. But I'm glad to see he has got the belt. But also he's in a long line of good wrestling big men. I think the best big men in wrestling is two. There's Bam Bam Bigelow and Big Van Vader. I think they were tremendous.
Yeah, well, firstly, in terms of Big Show winning the World Championship, for the second time winning the World Heavyweight Championship, obviously that's the WCW belt as such, that's the WCW Championship, which of course he won in his first ever pro wrestling match in WCW from Hulk Hogan.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And I believe it's a 2-time WWE champion as well, but I think that's about, it must be a decade ago now. Since Big Show was WWE champion. So this is his first major championship in a very, very long time, and I am glad to see him get it. I mean, Sheamus held the title for a very long time, since WrestleMania. It's a good 7 months. Big Show's win was a shock. It was a big surprise, and I think he's earned it. Let's face it. I mean, he does deserve it. I mean, he's a credible champion because all you have to do is look at the Big Show, and I think, to connect that with the second part of the question about who are the best wrestling big men, I think Big Show is up there because, I mean, obviously now he's a bit older, and he's a bit bigger, but I mean, the amount of Big Show is, for his size and stature, he's incredibly athletic. I mean, we've seen Big Show execute drop kicks. I've seen Big Show execute a missile drop kick from the top rope. He is a very agile guy for a near 500 pounder, but I would also absolutely agree that Bam Bam Bigelow and Vader are two of the most. I'd say Vader by quite a way was probably the most. Is probably the best big man. It's easy for me to say, because you look at, especially in Japan, where he's definitely had his best matches. I mean, he's having these amazing matches with these technical masters over in Japan. And he's throwing German suplexes left and right. He's leaping off the top rope with moonsaults, which is also stuff that Bam Bam Bigelow did, when he was still around. But I would definitely say that Big Van Vader is the best big man. But definitely Bam Bam Bigelow and the Big Show, I think, are up there, probably in the top 5.
Definitely. Yokozuna, many people will question me on that. I don't think he was the best big man, but I think when he first came into WWE, when he wasn't at his biggest. I mean, when he left there, he was obviously, I think he was close to 600 pound at one point, maybe even over, and he couldn't do anything at all. His health was so bad. But when he first came in, he was sort of anything between 400 and 500 pound. He came in. I think he was doing. I mean, the bonsai drop. He was doing suplexes. He was doing big leg drops. He was moved for a big guy. He could move. Bruiser Brody was a big guy. I mean, he was a great wrestler. Bruiser Brody was a fantastic wrestler, especially in Japan. Again, Andre the Giant. If you get a chance to see Andre's earlier matches, before he was the full 500 pounds and the illness took over, he was a tremendous wrestler. He was all over the ring. He was doing technical bits. He was coming off the ropes. Andre the Giant was a fantastic wrestler. I mean, what also I think makes a good big man wrestler is the ability to make the people believe in the audiences that these other men can hurt you. Because Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 3 was absolutely terrified of Andre the Giant, because obviously, of course, Hulk Hogan was supposed to beat Andre, power slam him and drop the leg and beat him. Andre the Giant had this undefeated streak as well, and Hulk Hogan was terrified of Andre because he was worried that Andre wasn't going to play ball and go along with the plan. Because Andre the Giant, being over 7 foot tall and over 500 pounds, if he doesn't want to do something in the ring, there's no way Hulk Hogan can make him. But as a big man in the wrestling business, you have to go out there and make people believe that the other guy does have a chance against you. And that's a credit to people like Andre, The Big Show, Yokozuna. They're all in the same, they're all up there, but I think, Bam Bam Bigelow and Vader, probably the two just for their sheer ability, air ability, and fitness for big men.
Yeah, I would agree with that in terms of skill and ability. I think in terms of the best big man in terms of sheer look, then I would go with Andre the Giant because the eighth wonder of the world, and all you have to do is look at him, and then no one has ever had the physical presence of Andre the Giant. He really was a wonder just to look at. You look at him and think, wow, look at this guy.
Definitely. It's the big men. You need someone to work with as a big man. I've seen matches between two big men. Some people dream of a match between Andre the Giant and the Big Show, and I think that match would be absolutely terrible. To be quite honest with you, I think their styles wouldn't complement each other. I don't think it would be a dream match from my point of view. I've seen Andre the Giant wrestle Big John Studd at one of the early WrestleManias, and that match was absolutely terrible. It was like watching paint dry. But you have someone like Hulk Hogan, who's a big man but a bit smaller, or the Ultimate Warrior, who was only 6'2", and and they're beating Andre, but they're making it look realistic. So all good stuff. Okay, last question this week is by a regular contributor, Chris Lappin. Thank you, Chris. And he says, do you think Vince McMahon will ever swallow his pride and induct Randy Savage into the Hall of Fame? Well, it's something we touched on a few weeks ago. We actually asked your opinions as well, people, who you thought on your questions on this, so thank you. Right, Randy Savage, obviously he passed away last year now, so it's always a possibility that he could be inducted. But no one is really sure. No one is sure, apart from his family and the McMahon family, as has happened. You hear rumours that it could be because of the Slim Jim deal. He took that when he left for WCW. It could be the fact he just left altogether for WCW. There's rumours, and I quote, these are just rumours, about he had some sort of relationship with Stephanie McMahon. I don't think anyone's ever going to find out what really happened between the two. I don't think Vince McMahon is the sort of guy actually to hold the grudge where he wouldn't induct him. He hates Bruno Sammartino, but he's attempted on several occasions to induct him, although Bruno doesn't want anything of it. Vern Gagne, again, no love lost there originally between Vince McMahon and him. He inducted Vern Gagne, a guy who never worked for his company. So I think one day he will induct Randy Savage. At least I hope he does, because no one contributed more to the wrestling business, and no one went to the far lengths that he did to plan the matches. He would fax people the day before the matches all the spots he wanted to do, and he would go through it. He wanted to practice with them because he wanted the match in the ring, the product, to be absolutely perfect. Again, you could say this about Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit is, in my opinion, wrestling-wise, he's very deserving to be one day in there. But of course, I don't think he will ever go in there for obvious reasons. But wrestling-wise, he's deserving. What do you think, Adam, about Randy Savage?
Yeah, I think he definitely had a Hall of Fame career. He's had some amazing matches. Just for one, probably the best match of his career was against Ricky Steamboat, WrestleMania 3. Like you said, I don't think anyone's ever going to know the truth about what happened. What led to Savage and McMahon falling out, because they were the best of friends. So who knows what happened there? One would assume that if it was a business thing, such as him jumping to WCW, or him, the whole Slim Jim deal and taking that with him to WCW, one would think that, Vince would let bygones be bygones because it was business, just like he's done to so many other people because it was business. I mean, Vince is the guy who's brought in Eric Bischoff. Like you said, Vern Gagne. Vince, made amends with Bret Hart, who went to WCW.
Yeah, I don't think this man is really. I think he'll look beyond that. I think because he did like Savage so much, originally, I think that because I think there's probably a panel of people that decide who should go to it. I don't know who actually. There's probably a panel of 6 people maybe. Originally, it probably been like Bruce Pritchard. Who's the Freebird guy?
Michael PSA.
Michael Hayes. Jim, not that they're there now, but Jim Cornette. Those sort of people when they were there probably all got together and had 10 names who they decided, and they probably had a finished list. But before they can contact these people and arrange it, it all has to go through Vince because he has the final say, I'm sure, on who goes into his company's Hall of Fame. And I think one day he will bite his lip, and because I think the fans will demand it. The fans will demand it, and one day you'll hear them at the Hall of Fame. They'll probably cheer his name because he absolutely deserves to be in there.
Yeah, going back to I don't think that we're ever going to hear the truth about what did happen. But like I said, if it was a business decision, I think that Vince would let bygones be bygones and have him inducted. There was a memorial video when he passed away. That we've had Savage chants. With Punk. The Macho Man elbow is a part of CM Punk's repertoire now and has been for the past since he died. There's been so many Savage references in the last year, but will he be inducted into the Hall of Fame? Only time will tell. This is always the case, but it's an interesting topic.
Definitely. Okay, thanks again always for your questions.
And we will be sure to delve back into it on the next episode, which will be again on the regular Sunday, which will be on the 11th of November.
He wasn't always the best in the world, but he always believed he was.
I am drug-free! I'm alcohol-free! And I'm better than each and every single one of you here today!
A loner, neglected by his own blood.
I watched all the resources and everything go to the brother who stole from me, and I was just like, peace out.
Propelled by his own desire to succeed, to change the rules, to become CM Punk, best in the world. In this exclusive compilation of never-before-seen interviews and untold stories, explore the straight-edge superstar's personal sacrifices.
I can't tell you of all the things that I neglected or missed or just completely ruined. I wasn't into burning bridges. I would blow the bridges up like while I was still on them.
His struggle for recognition within the WWE.
You look at the dude and think, oh, this is the guy that's going to go park our cars, or this is the guy that's going to steal our car, one of the two.
Nobody in WWE knew what to do with him. They just signed a guy that had some buzz.
A lot of people thought he tarnished the championship.
I went to Vince and I said, this is unacceptable. That was the last straw.
And the infamous moment that rewrote CM Punk's destiny.
They're going to give you a microphone and they want you to air your grievances.
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
The vibe backstage was so indescribable. Just people freaking out.
I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now.
Nobody can touch me. Pipe bomb.
CM Punk.
Best in the world.
Available now.
In a minute, we're going to give you a played review of WWE 13 by THQ. But before that, we want to share with you some of our memories of wrestling video games and arcade games. As you know, we are brothers and we spent many hours playing video games together, wrestling-wise and otherwise. So we want to share with you our thoughts on this, and we also love to hear your thoughts on your opinion on the video games today, wrestling games today. Your favourite memories of wrestling games. Who you always used to be as, maybe, or anything you want to talk about this. We're happy to listen. Right, my first ever recollection of playing a wrestling video game was on the first Nintendo when it came out, the NES. And that was I think it was WWF WrestleMania Challenge, I think it was called, or just WrestleMania, I can't remember now. But they had Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Macho Man, Rick Rude on it. And I can remember it was obviously a very basic game, but and very basic theme music for the wrestlers on it. But I think they all had their own signature moves on it, which was fantastic at the time. That's the first one I played. The next one I remember, which I probably spent so much money on in the arcade, was the WWF WrestleFest. And I remember that was, you could have two modes in that. One was the tag team mode, where you could pick any two players to wrestle, go on to wrestle the Legion of Doom for the titles. And there was also the Royal Rumble mode on there, which was brilliant. You had all the wrestlers, had Hulk Hogan, Earthquake, Sergeant Slaughter, Ultimate Warrior, Mr. Perfect, $1 Million Man, to name a few. And I remember also playing that with you, Adam, and spending loads of money on that one.
I can't even remember that, actually. It just shows you how long ago it was.
It's the one they made a really bad remake of recently on the iPads, I believe.
Oh right, yeah. They recently did that with a current day roster. That was interesting.
I mean, they brought wrestling on every console you can imagine, every handheld. They brought out wrestling games. WCW have always had a strong showing in the wrestling games. From the NES up to the, I believe they won the last game was sort of probably NWO versus the World. Was it WCW versus the World? Maybe something like that on the PlayStation 1. I remember us playing WCW Thunder a lot as well.
Yeah, I remember playing that a lot. There was a few, because I never really watched WCW until its final sort of year, I guess. Over here, or when it aired on TV or on Channel 5 in the UK, actually. And I used to, before I had a clue about WCW, really, apart from just reading about the wrestlers on the internet mainly. I was a big fan of Billy Kidman. I always remember, and a lot of the WCW cruiserweights, and there were lots of WCW games flying around that I just used to, get a hold of. I think Thunder was probably the first one I played. I played WCW versus the World, or I think it was WCW NWO versus the World. I really can't remember now. It's that long ago. That was another one I played. I also played WCW Backstage Assault, which was a wrestling game without a wrestling ring, and it was basically just. Every match was a hardcore match essentially, and you were backstage or you were in the street or in a bathroom or something, and you would just be fighting. I think it just used the exact same system as the build as WCW Thunder and games like that. But I remember my favourite WCW game being on the Nintendo 64, which was WCW NWO Revenge, and that was just came out slightly before WWE No Mercy, or WWF No Mercy at the time, which many people to this day still say is the best wrestling game ever made. Absolutely fantastic game was WWF No Mercy, but WCW NWO Revenge was a really enjoyable game. I used to love having these big battle royals with, I think you could have as many people as you wanted as long as your roster was big enough. So you could have these 40-man battle Royal Rumble style battle royals, but except in WCW. And I always remember I used to love being Goldberg and spearing people out of the top rope and eliminating them from the match. But the Nintendo 64 has some good memories for wrestling games because, again, WWF No Mercy, which I think I got that in I think I got that just after it came out. I remember I was bought it for my birthday. I think this must be in the year 2000 now. And just an amazing game. It was so detailed. And actually, that was made by the same people who made the WCW game. And at the same time, they also made WWF WrestleMania 2000. And before that, they'd made some Japanese wrestling games like Virtua Pro Wrestling. And Virtua Pro Wrestling 2 is another N64 game that I used to love. But I didn't actually get into that until about 6 years ago in 2006 when I started playing this game, which was from like 1998 or 1999, which is quite funny. Because the advent of emulators and ROMs and everything, that you can just play these games on your computer now. And I used to love Virtua Pro Wrestling because, like I mentioned, I think on the first episode, I went through a phase of being pretty addicted to Japanese pro wrestling. So a game of Japanese pro wrestling was right up my street at the time, and I used to love that game. It was very, very, very realistic, and I think much more realistic than the later game, which was WWF No Mercy, and actually probably the first game that really felt kind of real, in a sense that it was the kind of game that, you watch American wrestling and you watch Japanese wrestling, and there's a clear distinction between the two. And actually playing, an American wrestling game and playing this game based on Japanese wrestling, you could actually tell that they were two different styles of wrestling. And I thought that was pretty impressive for a game made back in the 90s, for a very limited, by today's standards, console like the N64.
Definitely. I mean, I remember going back sort of to the 90s. I remember getting the Rage in the Cage, and on the I think again on the NES, the WWF Steel Cage Challenge. I think it was the first time I'd seen a playable Undertaker character, and I actually loved it because you could be the Undertaker. I also had WWF WrestleMania on the SNES, which was an excellent. It was the first 16-bit one I played, and it all looked absolutely amazing. I think they had Vince McMahon and Bobby Heenan at ringside in the commentary, even though you couldn't hear it, you could see them. I remember being frustrated though because you couldn't do the finishing moves on that one. But I remember, I think it was 1993, and I was 12 years old, being so excited to come home because I knew that day when I came home, Mum and Dad were buying me on the SNES again, WWF Royal Rumble, and this had Mr. Perfect in it, which I was absolutely obsessed with at the time, Mr. Perfect. But you could also do all the finishers as well, so I could do the Perfect Plex, you could do the Tombstone, the Figure 4. Ric Flair on there, obviously Bret Hart, Undertaker again, and that was the first game I can remember wrestling game wise where you could actually do the finishers. I mean, moving on to sort of the more modern. Can you remember? It was the second SmackDown game. I think it was Know Your Role. And at the time, I was a huge mark for Chris Benoit. He'd not been in there long as one of the Radicals with Guerrero, Saturn and Malenko, and I was obsessed with Benoit, and I used to love him wrestling in those black tights with the like the purple slashes down with Crippler on the back of his trunks. And I remember getting that Christmas Day, and I think before lunch we ran upstairs and we put it straight on and just wanted to be Chris Benoit. And I can remember diving headbutt off the top rope, and I just remember being absolutely amazed by it.
Yeah, I can remember. Because you were the first person in the house to have a PlayStation. I remember you used to have the, like you said, the NES and the SNES and one of the Sega. I think it was the Mega Drive console. And then you sort of, I think you just stopped for a couple of years or whatever gaming, or just continued on the older consoles. I got the Nintendo 64, and then you got the PlayStation. You bought a PlayStation, and that's obviously when the first SmackDown game came out in '99, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And I remember playing that, and I don't think I remember playing SmackDown 2 a lot more than that. And then I think it was when you moved out, just before you moved out. I got games like WWF Attitude and WWF Warzone, which were these ones made by Acclaim, and also a couple of ECW games I managed to find in like a flea market a couple of years later. It was ECW Anarchy Rules and ECW Hardcore Revolution. These were both games that were built that used the same build as the WWF Attitude and WWF Warzone games. And I just remember not liking them at all because you had to press like start, and there were arrow directions to do each move, and they were just impossible. You couldn't have a fluid match without having to press start because you have to look up how you actually do a move. It was just to execute a basic suplex, you had to do a code that was as like difficult to memorize as a fatality in the original Mortal Kombat.
For those, just for the record, we do play Mortal Kombat quite a lot, and I do kick Adam's ass regularly on there.
Yes.
Going back to some of the more modern ones, you've had. I don't remember. You played these, I didn't, but there was WWE Day of Reckoning 1 and 2.
Yeah.
You remember those ones?
Yeah, on the GameCube, WWE Day of Reckoning and Day of Reckoning 2. Really, really enjoyed Day of Reckoning and Day of Reckoning 2. Again, they were whole new. They were a GameCube exclusive. They were whole new builds. I think they were based off either another Japanese game, or there was a Japanese wrestling game that came after. King of Colosseum, I think its name was. But again, another fresh wrestling game, really well put together. Really enjoyed that one. And those were before those you had WrestleMania 18 and WrestleMania 19. And I can remember you bought a GameCube, you went on holiday to Canada and lent me the GameCube, and I remember I was dying to play WrestleMania 18, and I don't think I actually thought much of that in the end. It wasn't until WrestleMania 19 that I think the WWE games on the GameCube really got going. But then Day of Reckoning 2 was the last one.
Well, WrestleMania 19 on the GameCube was bizarre because I think in that game you could actually physically throw people off a building site to their death. Which I'm not quite sure how that had any relevance to wrestling, I don't know. But also I remember buying you Crush Hour.
Oh yeah.
Which I think it was a racing game.
Yeah, it was Destruction Derby with WWE wrestlers having their own cars. That was weird. I remember, I think Brock Lesnar had like some sort of monster truck with the Brock Lesnar skull and crossbones logo on it. That was a bizarre game. No idea how that one got made. But
I'm going more modern now. I remember at the time I was more of a fan of it then than I am now. I can't really abide by the product now. TNA. The first TNA video game, when it came out on the PlayStation and Xbox, PlayStation 3 this was, I remember looking forward to that because I saw the reviews of it previously and showed them the making of the game, and had people like Samoa Joe in the suits where they all connected to the computer, and they were doing, I think they were supposed to have 4,000 moves in the game or something silly. It was
yeah, they mocapped about 2,000 moves, and I think 50 ended up in the finished game.
Exactly. It was just like playing. No matter who you selected on the roster, it was playing the same person really, apart from the finishing menus, which I didn't really abide by. But certainly, with the newer wrestling games, the later SmackDown games and the WWE 12. I find them a bit too personally. I like to play the wrestling games because as a gamer, I like playing games such as like your FIFA games, or a sports game where you can pick up a game, have a go on it, have a few goes on it until you get your fix from it, and then you put it down. You might play it for a few days, and you pick it up again, have a few matches on it. I never really get too involved in sort of storylines on these sort of games. But I find the controls on them very some of them difficult to master, and I find there's so many different combinations, grappling combinations now. I prefer the older games. We had a grapple, but if you pressed up, you did a suplex or a signature move. You press left, you do the move, etc. I find the new ones a bit too sort of technical for me. I'm not saying not for everybody, but just for me.
Yeah, you certainly get used to them in the end, but I think it's just a case of these games being so advanced and so realistic now that you simply don't have enough buttons on the controller. So eventually they're going to run out of buttons really to do different things. But in terms of the very modern games, I've still I've owned pretty much every WWE game since I think SmackDown 3 was the first PlayStation 2 wrestling game I ever played. That's SmackDown Here Comes Just Bring It, I think that was SmackDown 3. Then SmackDown 4 was Here Comes the Pain, or Shut Your Mouth, or always confused by the subtitles. But the SmackDown games were amazing, and eventually towards the end, before it became WWE, 12 and 13, etc., they got a bit too repetitive and they didn't really incorporate, add in much new content between the years. Because obviously, there is only a year between each game. But now, again, like FIFA and Madden and everything, where it's kind of, it is officially a yearly fixture. They've got the year in the title. They totally rebuilt it with WWE 12. And I thought that was an excellent, although flawed game. And now we've arrived at THQ's WWE 13, which is now available on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 and Nintendo Wii.
Okay, I haven't actually... Alan was sent this game a few days ago, so he's had a chance to play it, so we're going to listen to his review now, because I haven't actually played it yet. I intend to play it, but I'm actually still on the SmackDown 12 at the moment. I will get to play it, but let's... Adam, so what's your initial thoughts of the game after playing it?
Yeah, I've played this now for about 4... I've had it since Monday, actually, so I've been playing it now for about 5 days. The main theme of WWE 13 is the campaign mode, I guess you could call it the story mode, because it's built around the Attitude Era. And half the game really is the Attitude Era, because you've got 2 rosters. You've got the current WWE roster, and you've got the Attitude Era. And with the story mode of the Attitude Era, you're literally recreating history. It goes through the Monday Night Wars, and you basically go through different superstars like the Brothers of Destruction, Kane and The Undertaker. Stone Cold Steve Austin, you can relive his feud with Vince McMahon. You can relive the Montreal Screwjob and, literally see a cinematic of Bret Hart spitting from inside of the ring on Vince McMahon's face. Literally spans the whole Attitude Era, recreates these matches. In these matches, you have like historical bonuses where you can do things that actually happened in the matches to make them, as historically accurate as possible. They've got these amazing cinematics. They've managed to recreate promos using actual, dialogue from the actual recordings of those events, when they happened. They've also got, new voiceovers done by superstars from back then, like I've seen the Road Dogg and Triple H and Stone Cold have contributed their voices for the game. It's just a really realistic video game. You can, and that's just in the story. Going back in history, there is no current story mode. It's just Attitude Era, but it's certainly, I think it's the best story that they've ever, come up with. I mean, okay, they're not telling anything new. It's all 97, 96, 97 to 99, but they've really done a good job recreating the Attitude Era. And outside of the story, again, you can play it as Attitude Era superstars. However you want, you can match up Attitude Era superstars versus the superstars of today. You can do a Triple H triple threat match with the current Triple H versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus DX Triple H. If you really wanted to do that, you could do that.
Do you think with this game though, do you think when they've gone back to the Attitude Era, do you think they've either gone a bit lazy in the fact that they've gone back to the Attitude Era because they knew that was something that worked, and with the way the business is going today? I mean, do you think the people that make the games, as with the WWE sort of universe within the company, do you think that because they don't really seem to know at the moment with the current ratings, know what the people want? Do you think that they thought, well, we can't really make a video game for the future because we don't really know what the people want in the future, as opposed to, well, we know that the Attitude Era was phenomenally successful and we can make a huge game and we can go back and we can do that. Do you think they got lazy at all with that?
I don't think it's a case of them being lazy at all. I think it's just a case of, you go on the internet, you look at a wrestling match on YouTube, either that happened yesterday or last week, and people saying, "Oh, I wish there was blood. I wish this was the Attitude Era." Or you watch an Attitude Era match on YouTube, and people saying, "Oh, I wish this was what wrestling and WWE was like today." I think it's the case of there's people, because of the internet, people who perhaps weren't necessarily, alive or liked wrestling or followed wrestling at the time the Attitude Era was in full effect. Because of the internet, people are exploring that more and more now and reliving it maybe, and people are just talking about it all the time. So I think, there was clearly a demand for a game set in the Attitude Era, and of course they've had a couple of years now with their Legends of Wrestling a Legends of WrestleMania game and WWE All Stars. There was clearly a market for, the stars of yesterday, and I think they've done a really good job of recreating that time period, down to the finest details.
Definitely. Okay, thanks Adam for that. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear about your own memories of your favourite WWE games. Let's go down nostalgia lane together and discuss that. Also, any questions on these games? Regarding us playing them, or whether our opinions on certain games we've missed, and we've covered there a lot of video games wrestling wise. We've probably missed just as many as we've talked about, really, because there are a lot of ones we have got over. We didn't discuss the ECW genre because I don't think you played that much of it.
Probably best not to.
Probably best not so. And I think they were rushed, weren't they, to say the least. Again, thank you very much for your questions, everyone. Again, please keep sending them in.
Yep, and our next episode is on Sunday, November 11th, so be sure to listen to us here again on goic.net.
Thank you, goodbye.